evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome and thank you so very much for being here. As you may or may not know, depending upon whether you've attended one of these weekly group coaching gatherings, this is 30 minutes for you. So how it works is I, Kim Serafini, and or one of our Positive Prime leaders, somebody who's been through our certification program and has a session on our platform, has the opportunity to guide you, help you, shift you, move you. There are suggestions, there are recommendations. It's a little bit of art and science. And so it's your opportunity once a week to ask me a question. That question could be very specifically related to Positive Prime, or it could be just, hey, Kim, this is what I'm facing. What would you recommend? What would you suggest? What would you advise? I do a little bit of woo-woo. So I have my brain going, searching all my memory banks for the positive psychology, neuroscience oriented research studies that I've written and I've applied, and I've helped others of my personal coaching clients to apply, and or I may actually just get a message from your angels or my angels. So this is your chance. Those of you who've been here before, and I see a few of you have, ask me a question. Away you go. Breathe in. Maybe you want to put your hand on your heart. This area of your body, you could put either one or both hands. And just ask that beautiful higher self, the wise one within, the earth angel that you are, what is it that you would actually really like to know? It can be as obscure or as specific as you like. And let's see what comes through. Who is ready to kick us off? Who's ready to kick us off? Simply unmute yourself or raise your hand. All questions are welcome. I dare say that if something was just laid on your heart, it is in service of the others who are here and maybe those who are watching the video. Okay, beautiful. Kathy. Hello, Kathy.
Hello, how are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you. And I really appreciate your courage in coming on out and raising your hand. So how is it that we can assist?
What would be some of the videos that I could watch that would help to relax my muscle tension? My muscles are always tense.
Okay. Whew, that's a really big one. As you know, Kathy, I have had decades in the spa industry, Salas per Aqua, health through water. And so I'm going to say there is a session that I did create very early on in the grand collection that we have, and it's called Calm Down, Relax and Enjoy. And that Calm Down, Relax and Enjoy is actually a really overarching session. I view it when I'm also a little hyper or hypo, when I'm a little too frazzled, like I've got almost too much enthusiastic energy or excitement energy in my body. And I know that in stillness, in a very beautiful, serene, harmonious, balanced way, I can usually approach a situation from a better vantage point, or indeed with better energy to address whatever it is. So I would say that Calm Down, Relax and Enjoy works not only when we are feeling constricted, but also when we're feeling like our energy is a little too scattered. It works for both. Let me just send you some loving energy, and I'm pretty sure that everybody else here can as well, directly to you. And I want you to feel, if you can feel compassion, kindness, and care coming your way, just so that your muscles get this message that it's okay. It's okay for you to let go. Take a nice big deep breath in, and this is what I would suggest that you do in those moments, is that you then exhale for longer than your inhale, and when you've finished exhaling, you actually stop at the bottom of this cycle and then you push out even more air, and it's almost like you're going to get to the point where you need to gasp for more air. That will actually cause your brain, it's like a trigger that literally instructs it to calm down. And you will have an effect and an affect in your physical body that is because your brain waves will have slowed down as well. So you can take a nice, huge, big, deep breath in. And instead of holding it at the top, exhale even more slowly than you would normally. And once you're down at the bottom, before a little inhalation, try to push out even more. It's almost like you're going to and breathe in again. That's actually a good one. All righty. So I'm going to show you what I also do inside Positive Prime. So if you're trying to find where is calm down, relax and enjoy, you can go straight to the area where you can search, click it, and this one will appear. But I used another very key term, let go. There's a great session called Surrendering and Letting Go. Have you seen this one yet?
No, I haven't.
Oftentimes, we're tense in our bodies because of muscle memory. It's like our response, how we normally react. And sometimes, I know this is going to sound really radical, you could be picking up the tension that are of the people who are in your vicinity, and it might not actually be your tense reaction. And so what I would actually suggest, that one thing you do is when you're feeling really uptight, is that you remove yourself from the environment so that you can determine whether it's your emotion or somebody else's emotion that you have caught by contagion. It's one of the reasons why going for a walk is a good idea. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, I was just going to say I live by myself.
Okay.
So I'm not around people for extended periods of time.
Okay. And does that home environment to you feel like it's a sanctuary? It's where you're safe and protected? Here's what I would say. You could ask your higher self and or God and or your friends, what could I do that would make where I exist, where I'm experiencing life from, my home, what would it take for me to actually turn it into a sanctuary where I feel comforted? And I think that whatever idea that you come up with, if there are constraints like what could I do that is within my budget, that's also a brilliant question to ask of the universe, right? A lot of people might go to some grand ideas about what they could do that could involve all sorts of architects and interior designers, but often that's actually not necessary. So what could I do to actually make this environment that I'm existing in feel a lot more comforting? Now, for some people, they immediately start to think about their grandchildren. And so go spend some time with grandchildren if you've got them, or they start to think about their pet. And maybe they don't have a pet, but I've actually just heard some of the most beautiful stories in the last couple of weeks about people who do house sitting and pet sitting as a way of life. They are on these fabulous platforms. There's one that's international called Trusted House Sitters, and they go from home to home. And one of the reasons why they do that is because they love the variety of the environment. It's actually a pretty nice deal usually. And they really appreciate the ability to pat pets, right? That they may no longer have if their puppy or their pussycat or if they've passed on. And I thought, what an ingenious solution, maybe even as a short-term experiment. One of the things that we talk about with Positive Prime is that when you positively prime yourself quite a lot, you will find yourself in a state, like in a beingness that is more resourceful. That's scientifically proven. And you will start to notice more opportunities. You will see more possibilities. That's also been pretty much proven scientifically, and time again in all these different varieties. And so what I would highly recommend that no matter what, we actually go to the trouble of positively priming ourselves, and then we ask those really great questions of the universe or of our higher self or of our heart, right? Positively prime yourself first. And I will tell you, there's a couple of very interesting stories we've been hearing lately, because of course we've got a lot of our positive prime professionals who've been going through our certification program that we did with a company called Brain Co. You can Google Brain Co. They do robotic prosthetics as their main business, but they also have another company called FocusCalm. And the fascinating thing is they've got an app, and the app does brain training, and a lot of the app guides people through some pretty interesting meditations. It's a very interesting app. And what's fascinating for us is we're actually going through the process where Positive Prime will be inside their app. But before we go there, we were just really interested in what does it actually say in terms of the data for people who are familiar or comfortable, who are regular users of the FocusCalm device. What was it telling them? Here's what they found across quite a few people who were long-term users of the FocusCalm device. Those people who had a meditation practice had much better scores after they'd positively primed themselves. So if they positively primed themselves prior to their meditation was more rewarding from a data perspective, which means it actually had them in states of mental coherence in the frequencies inside their brains that was sustained. And that's actually fascinating. There are a lot of long-term meditators who would find it very difficult to believe that they can deepen their practice and they can have a more pure experience if they positively primed prior to that exercise. That's phenomenal, don't you think? It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And so I definitely know now, because of these other pieces of the puzzle that we're working on at Positive Prime, that you watching a Positive Prime session, whenever you need a shift, a state change. So it might not be just that you're feeling really uptight. I'm going to tell you also that there are some sessions that are around health and well-being. And I don't know if you've heard this, Kathy, people who do weight training with a fitness instructor or a guide, somebody who helps them, have much better control over the contraction and then the relaxation of their muscles. And so I don't know if you want to experiment by finding some videos via YouTube that could be some very simple ideas. But there's a lady who has classes that she runs via Facebook inside our community. Her name is Dee Terrell. Let me just quickly show you how you find her session. Dee Terrell is in her 60s. She's actually an actuary. She was an actuarial scientist. That was her career. She's a gorgeous human being. She is, she's fabulous in terms of her energy. She's so effervescent and encouraging. Anyway, Dee Terrell lives, I think, in New Jersey, but certainly in the Northeast of the United States. And what I would suggest that you do is that you have a little experiment watching her session every single day. And I would probably do it on speed 1 or 2. I would do it on a slower speed, and I would really feel into her messages. And then you can Google her, and then you can find her and follow along on these fabulous free classes that she does on her Facebook group. And she literally does an exercise where she goes, okay, so raise your shoulders, squeeze, 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 squeeze. Ah, let go. And she says that sometimes when we practice these kinds of behaviors, we become, in the first instance, much more aware that we were actually holding on. right? One of the other things that I would say about those of us who hold on is that we probably have forgotten that life can be magical, and we're not allowing that in. And so if you want to remind yourself that not only are you magical and life is magical, and that there is this quantum field that you exist in, Mastering Magic is also a beautiful session. I'm sure you also know that tension in our muscles produces all sorts of byproducts as chemicals. Some of them are well known, like lactic acid, right? And then what we know is that causes inflammation. So we do have a super mix that is called modulating the immune system. Because one of the things that we know scientifically is that that level of toxicity that is created, the inflammation in our body does actually adversely impact our immune system. And so I would say that this particular session, even though it's not a natural session for those in North America or in Europe to be watching during summer, because not everybody is like those of us in Australia who are going through influenza season. Modulating the immune system is not a natural go-to in summer, but the content inside this particular super mix is incredible. If those of you who are here for the first time have not watched a super mix is actually 5 sessions usually that are mixed, combined together, and every single time you press play, it reshuffles 5,000 of our flashcards. So it takes quite a lot longer to actually load because there's 5,000 files being downloaded from our servers ready to actually present to you. And so it's a lot harder or a lot more complex and difficult for the bandwidth of most internet systems to actually allow you to watch a super mix on maximum speed. And so people get a little bit confused, like, oh, how do I do this in 3 minutes or 5 minutes? Don't even try. I would play it on a speed that makes you feel comfortable. Okay. Now, having said that, I'm just going to address a couple of questions I often get about watching a Positive Prime session. So I'm feeling pretty happy today. That's pretty cool. I'm not happy all the time, but I'm pretty happy most of the time. And if I'm not happy, then it's a moment. And I watch a Positive Prime session, I go and do something like walk in nature or speak to somebody. So there are a couple of aspects of watching a Positive Prime session. The faster you go, the easier it is for the content to bypass the conscious critical judgment factors of your prefrontal cortex that usually stops you from allowing in messages that are unfamiliar to you. That's actually a part of the reptilian brain. It's part of your survival instinct. But here's something else that we know about the survival instinct that doesn't get a lot of airplay. So let me be the person who really champions this for the world. We've all heard about fight, flight, and fleeing, haven't we? When we're really afraid, we have this insatiable appetite to be right. And as you know, the late Wayne Dyer used to say, it's best to be kind rather than right. That's very difficult for people to do when they're in a heightened state where their survival has somehow, quite frankly, been stimulated. And that could be because somebody feels like they're under attack, because they're feeling hurt. There's 1,000 reasons why our survival instincts are actually triggered. And a lot of us can actually have a pathway to our amygdala that has been practiced so much that we're overly sensitive and reactionary to even things that, quite frankly, have nothing to do with our survival. But we've practiced the anxiety pathway so much that we immediately go there. And that actually takes training, brain training. A neuroplasticity effect is required for dramatic transformation. So what is little known that you're here to hear, and then I hope you'll actually go and share this, is that in our research with the University of Technology, Sydney, their School of Engineering have just completed a study. We did an EEG, the most advanced multi-channel EEG in the world, seeing what happens in terms of brain dynamics when people are viewing Positive Prime sessions. But we also had participants in the study who would watch negative priming sessions as well. So really, there was ethics approval and everything else like that. And then also neutral. And so we had groups of people and we would negatively prime them and then a positive prime session. We would positively prime them and then a positive prime session, and we will neutral prime them and then a positive prime session, and see whether positive prime sessions were actually the thing that were causing a shift, a change that was measurable. And so not only did we do EEG, we did eye tracking, and we did skin conductance as well. And when people were feeling positive, cheerful, elated, optimistic, their actual skin temperature changed. So that means that there was a change in the way that their blood was actually working through their body. That's pretty remarkable, isn't it? And we actually were able to discern it, measure it. Now, what's even more fascinating to me is that in eye tracking, our eyes go to smiles on a screen. We are connection-seeking beings more than we are survival instinct beings. Did you hear me? Most of the world has been taught that our survival instinct is the strongest of them all, and that's why there's fight, flee, right? And freeze. It's actually not the truth. The truth is we have an equal power. We're about to actually do a lot more research to find out if it's more and overpowering for seeking connection as a survival instinct. So not all of us run away, not all of us freeze, and not all of us fight. Some of us love. And we're about to prove that we all love if we're actually wired like that. So if we have neuroplasticity that has wired us for that, which is the greatest promise of positive prime, you literally are a human being in need of connection with others, physical connection with others. If there's nothing else you got from showing up here for this 30 minutes today, I would encourage you to pick up the phone and have a deep and meaningful, wonderful, laughing conversation with a dear friend or a colleague. Reach out. Maybe you need to go join a class at your local community centre. Maybe you need to volunteer. Maybe you need to help others. But I promise you, you as a human being need connection. Now, here's the fascinating part about the research. You are satiated of that need with positive prime sessions. So even those people who have social anxiety and are introverts can actually be satiated in terms of having their nervous system calmed simply by watching positive prime sessions. Because in our formula, we have a certain ratio of images of pro-social behavior and people smiling. It's by design. It's not by accident. And it's been the case since the very first one that I created as a trial over 10 years ago. So it's not something new. It's something I knew was necessary, but it's taken 10 years for us to actually conduct a substantial scientific study that proves that inclination, that intuition that I had. Yes, when you're viewing a positive prime session, you are literally seeking and sorting for friendly faces. So we teach that when you see one of these beautiful smiles, the retina in your eyes processes it. It sends a message to the mirror neurons in your brain. Your mirror neurons then communicate with your endocrine system, and hormonally you produce a chemical cocktail of more neurotransmitters and endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin. And that actually makes you healthier, right? So sometimes when you're not feeling like you want to go out there and laugh and jump for joy and be the, center of attention and the life of the party, that's okay. Plug into positive prime, right? you will actually have a physical change inside your body just by allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to watch positive prime sessions. And maybe that will actually fortify you enough to then go and do some of those other things, you know, in a group or in a community or at your local country club or with a, you know, fabulous people. You know, the whole book club movement and phenomenon, you know, the whole knitting circles or patchwork circles phenomenon, you know, they're ancient rituals that had real value. And in this day and age, so many of those kinds of things that we had time for, we need to create time for these days. We need to create time for them. It's absolutely necessary for our survival. People are necessary for our survival. We as human beings need others, right? So, if nothing else, allow the retina in your eyes to be stimulated by the smiles that you see in positive prime sessions. Watch it slowly if necessary. Now, the fascinating thing is that most people don't know, you don't need to read the words. You are actually taking in 11 million bits of information per second. You're actually only attenuating to about 40 bits of those information based upon your reticular activating system, or that which you've decided is important to you, right? And so the faster you go, the more I would say surrender and let go. The reality is it's working on you. We've just scientifically proven that. It's actually working on you. All you have to do is press play. The truth is that your identity will accept more of it, allow it in, give you the opportunity to absorb it, have you appreciate it, and then have the ability to apply it in your life with who you're being if you have personalized the sessions. So if you actually want the secret sauce, the hack, the most important part of the instructions for anybody who positively primes, it's that you must personalize the experience. Upload your own photographs of yourself and that which is meaningful and significant to you. Alrighty, so that's upload photographs of anything that is a beautiful memory. Anything that actually reminds you, of your life, of what you're grateful for, what you're actually super thankful for, who you're grateful for, who you're super thankful for. I think a lot of people focus on this being a vision board of that which is out there that's not yet received. But in order for you to receive that which is out there in the universe or in the quantum field, which you have not yet experienced, you actually need to be in vibrational alignment of receiving, which means you need photographs of all that you've received. So I actually do recommend to everybody that they go and take some photos of the gifts that they've been given, like physically the things that they've been gifted by somebody else. And then when you see a photograph of that gift, it's actually your other than consciousness that is reminded that you are actually in receipt of some wonderful gifts. You then actually drop into alignment with receiving. And part of the biggest issues around the law of attraction for a lot of people is that they're giving, thinking that is actually the most potent part of the formula. It's equal to receiving. We have to learn to be much more gracious and graceful in receiving. And that's usually a big lesson for most of us on this planet. Most of us have been conditioned to give. And of course, that's where when we become overwhelmed and depleted, and it leads to all sorts of other issues. Resentment that nobody gives us back what we give out, you know, and I could go on and on and on and on and on. So the answer to that, or one of the solutions, is be in receiving. Be in receiving. Upload photographs of that which you have received to remind yourself that you have in fact been a recipient of lots of generosity. And you will find that people are more generous around you. Good plan? Great plan. And tell me, was it worth showing up today? Was this 30 minutes to drop in?
Yes. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That was just beautiful, Kim, and can feel every bit of your conviction and the benefit of what you've created. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, Donna. And thank you, Alexi. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Philip, for being with us. I very much appreciate you. Every single week we show up here for 30 minutes. So come back and listen, or just be in the energy of it. Invite others, encourage others. This is your time. And I do this with my whole heart. Love you all. See you again next week. Thank you. Bye.